The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. If you want to read and dive into this amazing piece of literature, then you have come to the right place because I am going to give you all the advice that I have. If someone tells you that this is an easy work and that you will fly through, they're lying. It is not an easy book to read, but I will help you through. Now, why should you want to read the Silmarillion? It offers a deeper understanding of Tolkien's Middle-earth, but it is not for everyone. If you enjoy the lore and mythology of his world that he created, then you will definitely enjoy this book. It comes with a couple of challenges that you should know about. First of all, the writing style or the prose. Let me give you an example. There Madros in time was healed, for the fire of life was hot within him, and his strength was of the ancient world, such as those possessed who were nurtured in Valinor. His body recovered from his torment and became hale, but the shadow of his pain was in his heart, and he lived to wield his sword with left hand more deadly than his right had been. There are a lot of long sentences. They are very poetic, beautifully written, and you might have to reread a couple of them. Secondly, and this is also good to know before you start, is that there is no protagonist. This is actually a collection of all kinds of stories set in Middle-earth, and we always follow different characters. I do want to note that there is one great antagonist, and in my opinion it is the best antagonist ever written and brought to life in fantasy literature. How did I come to love the Silmarillion as much as I do today? Well, it wasn't a simple story. I didn't pick up the book, read it, and fell in love. I actually had to read it a second time to truly start to love and appreciate this work. Me not loving it the first time had a couple of reasons. The first one, I didn't go into this with the right mindset, and two, I had different expectations of the book. I had just come from The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I love those books, especially The Lord of the Rings. But I just couldn't get excited about this one. It wasn't love at first sight, and it wasn't Tolkien's fault. Back in those days when I read the Silmarillion, I wasn't in the right mindset. Like, I was reading books just to have read them, if you know what I mean. I was reading too fast. I wasn't reflecting on what I read. I wasn't journaling about what I was reading. Now, I wanted to give it another try because being such a Lord of the Rings fan, I had to love the Silmarillion. I had to try better. And so I am very grateful that I gave myself a second chance and that I gave this work a second chance. This time I went in with the right mindset. I took notes. I went very slow. I also want to mention that while Tolkien was writing this book, he passed away, and his son Christopher took over the job and he finished this book, which is amazing. Like, we wouldn't be holding this in our hands if it weren't for Christopher. So what are my top tips when you want to dive into this work? First of all, familiarize yourself with Middle-earth. I know many fans say that you can read the Silmarillion before any other book, but if you'd ask me, I'd say go for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit first, and then try to read the Silmarillion. In this way, you're already familiar with the characters, the setting, and certain events that are referred to in the Silmarillion. Also, approach it with the right expectations. Don't approach it as a story like The Lord of the Rings. Approach it like a mythology, like a history book. It is more a collection of legends and myths instead of a traditional novel. Don't expect the narrative that you find in your everyday novel. The thing that helped me tremendously, and I think this did the most in my enjoyment, was I looked up images. I looked up artwork of people who are super talented and who created artwork of the scenes taking place in this book. So I went chapter by chapter. I summarized the chapters and I added images to my document. This will help you visualize things and it makes you feel more connected to the story and the characters. Take your time, go very slow. If you are used to reading modern books, then you will have to completely change your mindset because this is going to ask so much more energy than the everyday novel. But I think if you are used to reading more complex books and classic literature, for example, then I think you might have an easier time consuming the Silmarillion. This book is also great to do one chapter a day or to divide it into smaller sections. Take in all the words, reread sections if you blank out or if you don't understand, if you have to read certain parts out loud. Also, make use of reference material. Use the maps that are in the book or on the internet. Use character names, look up family trees if it helps you, keep them next to your book, and things will get so much clearer. There are many names, places, events, and it will help you keep things organized. Use the internet. We are so lucky to be able to look up anything anywhere. So if you don't understand something or if you need help with something, there are enough fans talking about this book, and I am sure you will find the answer that you need. Talking about fans, maybe you can set up a reading club and read this book together with other people and open discussions and talk about it. That could also really motivate you and it can help you get through the more difficult parts. I previously mentioned that I summarized everything, so every chapter is summarized in a Word document that I have on my computer, and I also have it combined with the artworks in the document. I highly recommend taking notes. This was such a game changer. I don't think I would have understood everything as well if I wouldn't have taken notes. I did have to read it a second time to really enjoy it, so do not get discouraged if your first reading is not as good as you hoped it would have been. If you're really serious about learning more about Middle-earth, then it is definitely worth reading it a second time, and I promise you it will be so much better the second time and even the third. Fourth time, you will always discover new things that you haven't seen before. And finally, I want to mention that you can also combine the reading with an audiobook. Just find a narration that suits you and you can just read along while the audiobook is going. Next month I will be doing a guided reading of chapter 1 of the Silmarillion, so if you don't want to miss it, make sure to subscribe. If this was helpful in any way, give this video a thumbs up so we can spread it to more people. Thank you so much. I hope to see you next week.